Hello, and what do you say? Welcome to my YouTube channel. No, cringe. So yeah, I have decided to just do, I won't say quick because let's be honest, if you know me, you know I ramble and go on tangents, but I said I would do a quick YouTube video and covering all the questions that I've recently been asked about, you know, moving to Australia. Obviously it's moving in the middle of, well, not in the middle, I would say the end of a pandemic, and there is, you know, still lots of complications. Nothing's straightforward. Sorry, I'm looking in the viewfinder and then I don't know why I just look in the camera, but I look like shit, so apologies in advance. I'm in my pajamas. So yeah, I said I would answer a few questions. I was kind of thinking of how I would structure this because I hate watching YouTube videos where they just ramble, and I tend to ramble. So I've just put a few notes down of going through visas, flights, airports and applying for jobs. And I think I'll do a separate video on apartment hunting, potentially. I don't know, we'll see. So the first one that I'm going to touch on and that I've been asked in the question boxes on Instagram is about visas. So for me, we had a really smooth experience with the visa process. So we applied, myself and my boyfriend applied online through the Heyyyy website. The Heyyyy, I don't know, is it Heyyyy? I don't know. The Heyyyy website. Let me try to link it in the comments below. But we applied directly through the website, so we didn't go through, you know, any of the travel agents or anything. We just were told that it's cheaper and it potentially might be quicker. So for us, we were expecting, you know, I saw lots of people on Instagram saying there were months, weeks, etc. waiting on their visa to be approved, but we applied for ours, and I would say probably 15 minutes later we got an email to be like, you've been granted the, you know, working holiday visa. And we were like, what? It was like approved so quickly that I kept doubting myself, and I was like, is there meant to be like a follow-up? Like, do I need to go for an interview with it? Like, is there anything that needs to happen? But yeah, we were approved very, very quickly. It was pretty strange. So we are both, after coming out to Sydney on the 417 working holiday visa. For me, I'm only on this visa temporarily. If you don't already know, I work for TikTok in London, and I've been fortunate enough to secure a job with TikTok Australia, so it's kind of an internal transfer. And as soon as I start over here, my sponsorship visa will be started, and hopefully then Keith will be able to go on to my visa, and then we will be able to dodge the whole farming and also only being able to work for one employer for 6 months. So yeah, feeling like I got the golden ticket, I suppose. Still a little superstitious talking about it, so when it happens I'll be very, very grateful, but that's kind of the plans that are in place at the moment. Then another one was around flights, so I could probably talk about 20 minutes of all this shit that has happened when it came to flights over the last few weeks. If you follow me on Instagram, you'll know that my boyfriend had an absolute nightmare. He was on a one-way flight transiting through Amsterdam and Bangkok, and was refused getting on the plane in Amsterdam because Bangkok is super, super strict and the rules just weren't clear online. But that's another day story. So fortunately, I believe I manifested this, but we both got to fly out together on Valentine's Day. So what I would say is he originally booked the first flight that he was going on to Sydney through a Skyscanner, which was also, you know, through a third party, through last minute. And it was pretty much a nightmare, to say the least. And also around the same time, I was hearing of girls on Instagram saying that they arrived to the airport after booking through Skyscanner and a third party, and their tickets actually weren't paid for by the third party, so they weren't allowed on the flight. So that kind of gave me a bit of a fright. So we decided to book our flights directly through the airline, and I would probably suggest this because if anything goes wrong, you know, the airline will help you. Whereas if you've booked through a third party, I know from experience, nobody takes accountability. The airline blame it on the third party blame it on the airline, and it's really difficult to get an answer. So that is recommendation number one, book directly through the airline. So we chose to fly with KLM, and our flights cost $8.50 per person going over. On the one-way flight, obviously it was only a one-way ticket, and in the airport I was surprised. I was thinking of booking an upgrade, but then I kind of was like over it because Keith had previously booked it a lot with the flight previous, and that flight was a mishmash, and I was just like, I can't deal with paying so much money again and if anything goes wrong. But he surprised me with an upgrade in the airport. So this one was, he didn't tell me the price. He said it was in between $750 and $9 per person. I am guessing it was probably around $800 per person, and that's only for a 12-hour flight, so it's not the full 20 plus hours of traveling, it's just for like your longest flight. But it was definitely worth it. So, well, I think it was. So we flew business class from Amsterdam to Singapore, and it was cushy as fuck. So I slept the whole flight more or less. I just loved it. Like, it was probably the worst present Keith could have ever bought me, because my expectations just went from this to this real quick. So we had to get on, obviously, our last flight, which was from Singapore to Sydney, and obviously we were economy, and it was 8 hours, and I was a fucking diva. I was like, I'm so uncomfortable. I was like, I have no leg room, I can't sleep. I was so agitated, and Keith was like, you need to come off that pedestal real quick, because we're not going to be flying business class all the time. So yeah, I'd like to think that I will be, but you know, it's a long flight, and I think if you're traveling over 20 hours, it's definitely worth it. So that was flights. So, oh yeah, so we actually did have an issue. So a couple of days before we were flying out, Keith was like, let me just check on the app and see, you know, is there any updates? Can we add our bags yet? Blah, blah, blah. And when he went to check the flight status on the KLM app, it said unavailable or invalid. And when I checked it on my laptop, it said all segments of this flight have been cancelled. So that was a bit of a shit show 3 days before we were due to fly. Thankfully, because we booked through KLM, we were able to get like direct help from them. And basically they said that there was a technical error with the bank, and we had to completely scrap that booking and rebook again. And thankfully we got it for the same price, but definitely just be conscious of that. Also, when it comes to choosing what routes to take to fly to Sydney, I would be avoiding Bangkok preferably, because it is so strict. They require obviously a PCR, and they want you to have health insurance in the airport, and they're just really, really strict in general. And I just, yeah, wouldn't want to fly through there, because if you do test positive, or you know, if something goes wrong, I just wouldn't want to, you know, banged up in Bangkok. Don't really want to do that. So I would say definitely go through Singapore. So the airport experience. So basically everything was fine in Dublin airport, Amsterdam airport, and they just, you know, check your details getting on the plane. Like, it was totally fine. And I think the most stressful part was when we landed in Singapore. We had wait, am I getting confused actually? Was it Singapore or no, it was Singapore, wasn't it? Yeah, when we landed in Singapore, we had to be escorted. So when you're coming off the plane, they'll say, are you a transfer or are you going to Sydney? And there's like 2 different lanes. And if you're a transfer, everyone gets escorted to this specific area. You get given a wristband, and then you get walked to like a lounge. The lounge we were in was pretty nice. There is no food though. So if you're gonna if you like eating like me, or if your stopover is like a couple of hours, pack some food, like bring snacks. You can order, but there's not many options, and it says like order 2.5 hours before your flight departs. So yeah, not ideal. But yeah, you're kind of like locked in a lounge for 4 hours, and you're not allowed to leave. Now, it's not as bad as it sounds, but just be wary that's the situation. And if you do fly through there, definitely pack some food. But in the airport, what they asked for, so just to go into detail of it, so in Singapore airport, you go through like, I don't know what it's called, like there's just like people at a desk. So they look for your PCR or your antigen test, your visa, your COVID vaccination, and then you basically fill out, what is it? Oh, is that in the second flight? Oh my God, I'm getting confused. So PCR or antigen, visa, vaccination cert. I think that's it. Yeah, I think that was it. And then they let you go through. And then when you get on the Qantas flight, they give you a little card. I think it was like, was it a declaration card or something? Passenger locator? No, I don't know what it was. It wasn't passenger locator. It was like, don't know what it was called. It was just like a little card that you fill out like some information. Like it wasn't anything, you know, crazy. It was a tiny little card. And then when we were going through Sydney airport, like to be totally honest, I was still at this point like so anxious. I was like, oh my god, like I'm still don't feel like I'm in the safe zone. Like what if these start asking us questions? Like what if our visa's not right? Like, you know, I was freaking out. And then when we got to customs or to passport control, they were literally just like, can I have your passport and can I have that little card that you filled out, so whatever it's called. And I was just like, okay. I thought they were going to want to see my visa. They didn't ask for a visa, they didn't ask for PCR, they didn't ask for antigen, they didn't ask for COVID vaccination, nothing at all. And so it was like a breeze. And then when I walked through, I was asked to see my vaccination status, and Keith was asked to see something else. It was kind of like a random check, so it was pretty straightforward and easy. So yeah, I definitely think that I hyped up, and I think everyone else hypes up how scary traveling through a pandemic is, but it actually wasn't too bad. It was pretty smooth. The only obviously bad experience we had was 3 weeks prior when Keith wasn't allowed board a plane, because the information just was so confusing online around Bangkok. But 100% research where you are transiting through, what the guidelines are for transiting. And yeah, just make sure it's the most recent up-to-date information, and it will save you a lot of money, because unfortunately the information that me and Keith had found or that we had read when he had previously flew just wasn't obviously updated, because yeah, he got refused on a plane at Bangkok and had to return to Ireland and hold off for a few weeks. But yeah, I don't think it's as scary as I built it up in my head to be, and yeah, it was pretty much fine. I think I covered the visa questions there, and the water questions, and the airport kind of questions. So yeah, if you are planning on moving to Australia, I would say apply for your visa ASAP. Also, what's really great, don't think I mentioned it, if you apply for your visa between now and I think it is June maybe, you actually can get a rebate, so you can get a refund on the price of your visa. I think we paid €350, so you can get that money back. It's kind of like an incentive to get people over, which is really good. So yeah, I would say absolutely go for it. Book the one-way flight. Life is too short. You'll figure it out. Get your PCR test, get your visa, and if you're vaccinated, you are able to just, you know, head on over here and start a new life. If you're not vaccinated, I read that the new rules as of, I think it's the 18th of February, don't quote me, that if you're unvaccinated, the hotel quarantine is just 1 week now, which isn't too bad. But if you're fully vaccinated, there's no quarantine involved. You just do an antigen test when you get to your apartment or wherever you're staying. It's kind of like a trust system where they trust that when you get to your apartment, you will do an antigen test on your first day and on your 6th day. So, you know, it's really, really fine. The rules are quite relaxed over here at the moment. It's, you know, it's not too intense. It's pretty much similar to Ireland, I think. Obviously I'm only here a few days, so I'm still getting familiar, but everyone just wears masks. Everyone wants their own business. And I think they've dropped the check-in at stores, because I haven't really been asked to check in any of the stores, you know, through the QR code. But yeah, I hope that answers all of your questions. I will definitely do a separate video on apartment hunting, because I know the apartment hunting videos helped me a lot before I moved here, and I will definitely give prices, etc. But yeah, just a quick chat, just a quick update, and I hope it was helpful.